Welcome to the Zoom class, the new way we do things in this new world of ours. So I've been teaching on Zoom now for a couple of years, doing courses and this, that, and the other thing, and I'm quite surprised how effective it can be for communication, for people connecting, and for teaching and for learning. So I hope you get something from this morning's class. Um, the most important thing is that you're here, and that if you're here, it means you want to learn. If you're here, it means you're maybe taking this journey of life a little bit more seriously, or you have questions. And really, that's the most important thing. That's the most important thing. We're here for a short time. And what are we doing? How are we moving through our day? How are we moving through our days, our relationships? How are we working with ourselves? Are we moving towards something which is feels more wholesome? Are we moving towards something that it gives us a sense of fulfillment, a sense of calm? Are we able to work with ourselves and others in a more skillful way, in skillful ways where we are adding to positivity, if you will, in the world? Or are we caught up in reactions? Are we caught up in reactions most of the time? Are we caught up in conditioning that really narrows our experience of our life and the world? And in my view, meditation and mindfulness is opening a door for us to be able to be more present in our lives, to be more aware of what we're actually doing as we are moving through the moments of the day. So my third class, I think most of you are new. I see one person who's been here, so that's wonderful for all the classes. So there's two things that I've been talking about. In general, I've been talking about the meditation itself, which is meditation on the breath. And the other aspect is mindfulness, is working with mindfulness. And the two are mutually supportive of each other. The idea of the meditation in some ways is to develop the ability to calm down and to be able to be present with what's taking place. And the mindfulness is something that we work with throughout the day. We develop the ability to watch ourselves. And there's a lot to that. There's a lot to that statement. But we can define mindfulness as watching our experience, watching our minds in an open, non-judgmental way. One of the ways of talking about this practice, this way of being, really is you can break it down into 4 stages. You can break your meditation down in 4 stages, and you can break mindfulness down into 4 stages as well. And the first stage is arriving. And so we arrive to the present moment. We arrive to what's actually taking place now. And in the practice, in the meditation practice, where we first show up is we show up to the body. We're sitting with the body. We're sitting with the breath. We're sitting with the body. We arrive here. Because a lot of times we can be pretty far away from our bodies. We can be we can get really lost in our heads, in our minds, and not present with the physicality of our experience. And the thing about being with a body is the body doesn't lie. The mind the mind makes up stories all the time about this, that, and the other thing. But the body, if you're tense, the body feels tense. If you're anxious, the body feels anxious. If you're happy, you feel it in the body. If you're confused, you feel it in the body. So we, in this practice of meditation and mindfulness, the first stage is to arrive. And even that, for some people, is a difficult thing. We can be very uncomfortable with ourselves. We can be very uncomfortable with just being in the body. We live in a world where we have so many distractions. So many distractions. Rarely for a lot of people do we just kind of sit quietly with ourselves. So the 4 stages of practice start with arriving. The second one is observation. The third one is opening. And the fourth one is being. So I'm going to skip the middle two for a minute. So we arrive, but where we're actually arriving to, we're not creating something. We're not grasping onto ideation or philosophy, but we're simply arriving ultimately at our own beingness. We're arriving at who we are. And that runs very, very deep. That's a very deep statement. It's not just who you are in your mind. It's not just who you are in terms of what you think you are or what your experience has been. I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm up, I'm down. No, we see all those things, we move through all those things, but to truly arrive, we come to a place that is at the core of our being. You're 30 years old, you're 40 years old, you're 60 years old. There's been throughout that entirety, there's a continuity of beingness. And there's lots of changes. Our bodies are different, our brains are different, our minds are different. But I would say there's an essence within us. And all of these people talking about spiritual practices and enlightenment and one thing and the other, what they're doing is they're pointing to a fundamental essence within ourselves that in our world we give very little attention to. We live in a very material world. And it's better to be comfortable, which hopefully most of us are. But once we have our basic needs met, there's another kind of richness that is accessible to us. So we arrive with the idea of settling into the sense of being with ourselves. The meditation is not something, there's not kind of a secret in that you take 3 pills a day and then everything is groovy. It's not quite how it works, but we develop our ability to be present. We develop our ability to arrive. And we explore this experience. And at the essence, at the core of this experience, there is something there that is free of all the coming and goings in the mind. There's something that is part of who we are, but is in some ways not part of the world. But we'll just leave that there for now. So we arrive, and in this practice of mindfulness, of meditation, we observe. We observe ourselves. So we change our relationship with our minds in that we learn to just look and see what the mind is doing. We don't necessarily identify with the reaction or the thought. So we're turning our attention from out there inward. So we're starting to observe ourselves. Because even though there's a world out here, the entirety of your experience is in your mind. That's what you experience, right? You experience your relationship, your reactions to the world around you, to people around you, to yourself. So we start to develop the ability to look at the content of mind. We develop the ability to watch. And in that, there is a tremendous capacity to be able to open up into a different way of being. A tremendous capacity. If you've meditated before, then you've probably tasted that. Arriving, just coming here to ourselves, observing. You are not, this is a radical thing to say to some people, but we are not the content of our mind. We are not the content of our mind. We identify with it, but we are not the content of our mind. Your mind's not the same now. You don't have the same thoughts now as you did when you were 5 or 15 or 25 or 45, whatever the case may be. Because of conditions that come together through our conditioning in the culture we grew up in, the parents we had, the schools we went to, the friends we had, all of that creates or influences our experience, but in its essence is not who we are. It's not who we are. So the process of mindfulness and the process of meditation is really exploring who we are, what our experience is. So when we begin to observe and not grab on to, not identify with the mood we're in, the thoughts we're having, we develop this capacity to observe. And in that, there is this sense of an observer, a watcher, awareness, any of those terms. What's aware? So we open up to this experience of watching. We open up to this experience of being. And the thing about this way or this path is it's not dependent on other people. It's not dependent on being a Buddhist or a Muslim or a Christian. It's not dependent on any of that. It's just opening up to our experience and allowing our experience to show us who we are or who we aren't. So when we start to think this way, when we start to develop the ability to work with calm attention, it creates a different framework to observe ourselves from. So somebody says something to you and it upsets you. If you can turn your attention around to your own reaction and work with that, you're going to be a happier person. That's for sure. You can't control what's going on out there, but we can work with our reactions. We can work with our conditionings. We develop the ability to turn the attention inwards on ourselves in an open, kind, loving way, and take ownership for our reactions. And in that, included in that is, with that experience, there's the development of observation, there's a development of this aspect of awareness that we start to open up to. That we start to be able to work with. And so it's that aspect of ourselves that is calm, bright, and present. Those are the qualities of awareness. But as long as we're identifying with thought, as long as we're moving through our day, through our world in habitual patterns, there's no space to see that. And the more unhappy a person is, for sure, there's circumstances that we move through. We all go through really tough times in our life. And those times are going to be hard. And we're going to be sad and we're going to be upset and this and that. But hopefully those aren't happening all the time. But there is the person where they're always miserable, even on a nice sunny day, because they can't get outside of their conditioning. They're trapped. So this practice is a way to open up to something greater than our conditioning. The proclivities that we have in our mind of being one way or the other. Oh, I'm always this, I'm always that. This practice is creating space. It's creating space. And so we develop a daily meditation practice to develop this space, to connect with this space. And then once we've done that, then we develop the ability to bring that with us in our daily life.